Dear Chairman, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for having me. Today my topic is safely an army device with MEMS-based encryption system driven by Electrothermal Actuator. I'm Kuang Fang from China Academy of Engineering Physics and Xi'an University. To start with, my presentation today mainly consists of two parts. In first part, I will give a brief introduction of the issue that inspired our research and the status quo of MEMS ESAD. In second part, I will propose two types of MEMS ESAD, which reflect the evolution of our research, and the relevant tests will also be presented. So let's begin. Initially, the combination of electronic safety and army device with slapper detonator has been considered as an efficient approach to achieve the high safety and reliability. Indeed, the ESAD has brought about some merits, such as safety, reliability, measurable miniaturization. However, most of current ESAD are based on the classic framework jointly proposed by Sandia and Harry Diamond, which contains a large amount of logical devices. And unfortunately, according to the report of the 55th Annual Field Conference, there may be potential safety hazard for any logical device that could directly lead to the accidental detonation of munitions, especially when confronted with the high intensity of electromagnetic interference in the battlefield. So, how could we tackle the problem of EMI and the logical devices? One promising approach is that substitute MEMS ESAD for the ESAD that transfer the switch on the discharge circuit to the switch in the detonation serial, so that the quantity of logical devices could be cut down. And regarding to the status quo of MEMS ESADs, current MEMS ESAD can be classified into two categories: the inertial disarming type and the electrical disarming type. The MEMS ESAD disarmed by inertia usually possess the high anti-EMI capability, but rely on specific environment condition, so that the universality is poor and it's also difficult to fabricate or assemble. However, the electrical disarming MEMS ESAD possess excellent universality and compatible with sensors, which is conducive to the intelligence and the flexibility of munitions. And based on these merits, the electrical disarming MEMS ESAD has been considered as the most promising type for future application. So, our research mainly focuses on the electrical disarming MEMS ESAD, which can be divided into several types, such as the electromagnetic one, or the one whose interrupter is driven by energetic materials, or the one which is actuated by electrothermal or electrostatic actuators. Indeed, different kinds of MEMS ESAD have been proposed, but there is still the common bottleneck for their application. That is how to survive the EMI. Because most of current MEMS ESAD are controlled by the simple on-off switching signal, or obsessed with the problem of logical devices. So, in order to cope with this problem, we propose the MEMS ESAD with a mechanical encryption system. In this part, our presentation can be divided into three stages. Stage 1, the bidirectional linear mode, which is the basic mode of our MEMS ESAD. Stage 2, the rotary mode, the upgraded rotary mode. In this part, the discrimination mechanism has been added into the ESAD, and the control signals have been simplified compared with stage 1. And stage 3 is about the package optimization and the relevant tests of MEMS ESAD. So let's start with stage 1. In this part, we've set some basic requirements, such as the capability to fulfill arming and the disarming process. And the process also needs to be resetable. And what's more, the MEMS ESAD should contain the mechanical encryption system. So, in order to meet with these requirements, we proposed the MEMS ESAD with safety and arming chip, and the SATCA barrier for the flare sharing, and the cover plate for the device protection. And the transition between safe status and on status is presented as below. And the overall travel distance of interrupter is more than 1 millimeter. And so as to the actuation method, since the Chevron actuator couldn't provide sufficient displacement output, the micro lever has been integrated to magnify the displacement output. And then the actuation of the interrupter has been realized through the relative movement between the paw of micro lever and the teeth on the slider. It's obviously that the theory for electrothermal actuation is already highly developed. So the problem to solve the actuation formula lies mainly in how to establish the relationship between the input voltage and the displacement output of interrupter. To reach that point, we combine the output of electrothermal actuator with the theory of flexible microlever, and then we can obtain the equilibrium relationship between the output force of actuator, the retarding force on the interrupter, and the displacement output of the paw on the microlever. Since the output force of the actuator is directly linked to the input voltage, the relationship between the voltage and the displacement output of the paw on the microlever can be obtained. And what's more, the analysis of a Chevron actuator output force can be simplified as a statically indeterminate problem of a double-clamped V-shaped beam. And combined with the complementary energy method, the derivation process can be described as we start from the input voltage, and then we can obtain the average temperature rise on the actuator, and then we can obtain the maximum deformation of actuators. So the output force of actuator can be obtained, and combined with the retarding force, we can get the displacement output of the paw on the microlever. And based on this process, we can establish the steady-state model of the actuation of our interrupter. And based on this model, we can also obtain the maximum temperature on the actuator, which matches with the experimental results quite well. The melting point of silicon will be reached with the input voltage of 19 volts. And then we come to the part of design strategy of the encryption system. In this part, the encryption system comprises two kinds of codes, the voltage code and the timing sequence code. The voltage code mainly corresponds to the specific T-wise on the slider, and the timing sequence code reflects the coordination between different actuators. And in order to realize the bidirectional actuation, the T-wise sequence on the motion direction should be identical. That is, T-wise sequence from point C to point from point D to point C should be identical with that from point B to point A. And then one step of decoding process can be divided into 6 sub-steps. To start with, the upper paw will disengage with the slider, and then the interrupter will be pulled to one direction. And then the upper paw will engage with the slider, the position will be held on. And after that, the bottom paw will realign with the gap on the sliders and re-engage with the sliders. And then one step of the decoding process is completed. And due to the interlock mechanism between the upper paw and the bottom paws, the deviation in each step of the decoding process will not accumulate on the overall disarming process. so that the cumulative deviation in 9 steps of the disarming process merely take a percentage of 0.7, and the large travel range is realized. As we mentioned before, the specific T-wise on the slider corresponds to the specific decoding voltage, and this pattern could also evolve into different kinds of coding systems which could be applied in future application. And once the decoding voltage is inaccurate, the pole will stuck with the sliders. So, to sum up, the signals input on the MEMS SAD are presented as below. We can find that the encryption system comprises two kinds of code, the timing sequence code and the voltage code. And to reverse the motion direction, we just only need to swap the signal 1 with signal 3 and signal 2 with signal 4. What's more, we should pay attention to that when the decoding voltage is inaccurate, the pole will only be stuck with the slider instead of be locked down, which indicates the absence of a discrimination mechanism. So, for the further improvement, we provide the upgraded rotary mode. In this part, the bidirectional slider has transformed into a rotary gear, and the control signal has decreased from 4 signals to 2 signals, and the resetting signal is identical with the driving signal, which makes the control of the device much easier. And in addition, the discrimination mechanism has been realized through the trap in the gear. The thing is bidirectional mode. The decoding process, each step of decoding process could also be divided into 5 sub-steps. And when the decoding voltage is located in the trap room, the pole will be captured by the trap, and the whole system will be locked down. To verify the stability of this displacement, the driving test has been carried out. The test of each sample has been repeated at least 5 times with a maximum standard deviation no more than 2.63 micrometers. And what's more, based on the previous steady-state model, we can obtain the profile of the maximum retarding force during the interaction process between the gear and the V-shaped beam, which serves as a protection holder. As shown in the figure, the profile of the trap tooth can be divided into 4 parts. In part 1, the first tooth of the trap starts to contact with the V-shaped beam, and part 2, the first tooth detached from the V-shaped beam, and part 3, the second tooth contact with the V-shaped beam, with the station holder, the position holder, and the part 4, the whole trap will detach from the V-shaped beam. And this part mainly serve to validate our mathematical model. And to assess the discrimination feasibility, the passive and active escaping test has been carried out. And the passive escaping test has been conducted by random vibration test, and the active escaping test is conducted with the maximum working voltage. And what's more, we have applied the hybrid fabrication process to tackle the dilemma between the fragile barrier property of silica and the assembly difficulty of Leica process. In this part, the nickel plate with a thickness of 300 micrometers has been extrapolated and patterned on the SOI wafers. And the MEMS SAD is packaged through the BGA process on the aluminum circuits. And to verify the feasibility for the application of MEMS SAD, it has been integrated with an exploding microchip with copper ESAD. And this part the sharing performance of a Sitka barrier has been verified. Because in conventional detonation serial without an ESAD, the barriers are usually made of sapphire or stainless steel. So, and according to the test results of the average velocity of the titanium flare, the sharing performance of a Sitka barrier is comparable with that of sapphire barrier or stainless barrier. And besides with these tests we mentioned here, we also conduct other tests such as the temperature cycling test and the temperature storage test. What's more, the Mammoth SAD has survived the overloading test with the maximum overload of 6,000 G. And for the further research, I think we could focus on the high precision motion detection to constitute the closed-loop control of the MEMS SAD, which will benefit its long-term application. And finally, the electrothermal actuator may seem a little bit old-fashioned, but the essence of the parent research lies mainly in the accumulation of the tiny output of actuator to achieve the large travel distance, and also the mechanical discrimination and the encryption system. That's all. Thank you very much.